All right, the All-American Locomotive Company Operating Manual Century Series Load Locomotive AC and DC Transition Locomotive Product Incorporated. This operating manual covers the Century 430 and 630 from the collection of Tom Gardner's from the Railroad Fallen's Flag or his website. Pages 23, 24, 51, and 52 missing from checking. C62B for similar pages. This manual covers the basic instructions to assist operating personnel with efficient servicing and handling with the Century series with road locomotive to the AC and DC transmission. Scripted information pertaining to the commonly used specialists is contained herein and defined in the phrase if used written within so that it may be complete for locomotives with or without the specialty of the equipment. The information furnished is based on the construction date material was complied. All American Locomotive Company Product Incorporated, New York 12350. All right, your basic data introduction, diesel engine traction, auxiliary generators, traction motor, automatic transmission, auxiliary equipment, dynamic braking, operating with control stand, controlling operating handles, mechanical interlocking between the handles, controls of the engine man position compartment with the control panels, preparing for the operation before boarding engine compartment, starting the diesel engine before moving the train, coupling units equipped with a 26L brake equipment, moving the train, stopping the train, reversing locomotive, shutting down the diesel engine, multiple unit operation, power matching feature, lead unit power reduction, throttle handling, and wheel slip. Your equipment 26L brake equipment changing the operating ends of the 26L brake equipment operating 26L with the 6SL or the 24RL equipment with the multiple unit braking with the power recovery with the brake after the penalty application. Fast air pumping and emergency brake valve, auxiliary air equipment standing control, miscellaneous operating instructions, dynamic braking operation, dual control, hump control, passing over the railroad crossing, engine watering system, handbrake operation, cab heaters and defrosters, classification lights, number lights and headlights, abnormal operation, emergency engine shutdown, emergency fuel cutoff with the emergency reverse operation, traction motor cutoff switch for the taking the diesel engine off the line with the multiple unit operation, putting the diesel engine on the line with the in the multiple unit operating with the lead for the idling of the or shutdown operating with the dead battery with lead on the lead unit. Towing dead locomotive operating through water gauge of the instrument load meter, the speed indicator, age gauge, control air pressure gauge, the engine system gauge, other system gauges, automatic alarms and safeguards, low lubricating oil pressure, hot engine, low water ground for relay, generating field overlay relay, dynamic braking warning, wheel sleep warning, circuit breakers, crankcase, exhauster, journal box, heat indicator, diesel engine overspeed, no battery charge, or locomotive overspeed. All right, figure one shows the parts and location of the apparatus of Century 430. All right, figure one, part two, location of the apparatus, Century 430, engine one, two alternator, three gearbox, fan generator, four auxiliary generator, five with control stand, six with the brake valve, seven the control compartment, eight the mechanical air cleaner engine air, nine the air cleaner exhaust, the mechanical air cleaner alternator, rectifier, TM air, hood pressurizing fan, traction motor, 12, 13 traction motor and rectifier blower, 14 radiator, 15 radiator fan, 16 radiator fan clutch, 17 radiator shutter, lubricating oil filter, 18 lubricating oil cylinder, 19 lubricating oil cooler, 20 air compressor, 21, 22 main air reserve, 23 fuel tank, 24 fuel tank filling connection, 25 fuel oil filters, 26 sandbox, 27 sandbox fill, and 28 engine water expansion tank, 29 engine water fill and drain, 30 batteries, 31 handbrake, 32 cab heater, 33 cab seat, 34 headlight, 35 classification light, 36 number box, 37 horn, 38 bell, 39 starting air reserve, 40 starting air motor, 41 rectifier, 42 exciter, 43 generator compartment shutters, 44 engine aftercool radiator and shutters, and then 45 through 48 are modifications, toilet cab seat, dynamic braking resistors, and dynamic brake shutters. All right, this is figure two, part one, location of the apparatus, Century 630 locomotive. All right, your figure part two, location of apparatus, Century 630 engine, one alternator, two gearbox, three FM drive, four auxiliary generator, five control stand, six brake valve, seven of the control compartment, eight the mechanical air cleaner engine air, nine air cleaner exhaust, 10 mechanical air cleaner, alternator, rectifier, and TM air. 11 hood pressurizing fan. 12 traction motor. 13 traction motor rectifier blower. 14 radiator. 15 radiator fan. 16 radiator fan clutch. 17 radiator shutter. 18 lubricating oil filter. 19 lubricating oil strainer. 20 lubricating oil cooler. 21 air compressor. 22 main air reserve. 23 fuel tank. 24 fuel tank fill and connection. 25 fuel oil filter. 26 the sandbox. 27 sandbox fill. 28 the engine water expansion tank. 29 engine water fill drain. 30 batteries, 31 handbrake, 32 the cab heater, 33 the cab seat, 34 the headlight, with the 35 the classification light, with the number of 36 number box, 37 horn, 38 bells, 39 starting air reserve, 30 40 stereo motor, starting air motor, 41 rectifier, 42 exciter with a 43 shutter, radiator and shutters, engine aftercooler, dynamic braking resistor, toilet seat and cab seat modifications. All right, your basic data Century Series 430 and will be listed first. Second is 630. Specifications DL 430, DL 630, Class AAR, BB, and CC. Oil diameter 40, journal size 6 and 1/2. Track gauge 4 and 8 and 1/2. 4 foot 8 and 1/2. Engine speed 1100 RPMs, horsepower 3000, bore inch is 9, stroke in cylinder 10.5, cylinder 16, capacity, fuel oil gallons 30,000, 2000, lubricating oil 250, cool watering 340, sanding cubic feet 28 and 48 feet, traction motors 4 and 6, air brake 26L, principal dimensions figure 1 and figure 2, of location apparatus, track curvature maximum, multiple unit operation 30 and 21, without train 39 and 25, wheel on drivers 272,000 and 350,000, total locomotive pounds 272,000 and 350,000. All right, the introduction. These versatile diesel-electric road locomotives are adaptable to all classes of the railroad operation that consist of one unit with a couple with a diesel engine generated with the truck's necessary accessory within an operating between the long and short hoods. The control may be applied with the multiple unit operation with all the units controlled in one cab. The diesel engine in each of the locomotive is powered with the V-Type 9 by 10.5-inch single engine turbocharged with the model 251 diesel engine for the 4-stroke cycle, having open combustion chamber with the solid fuel injection. The engine speed governor with electrical hydraulic governor. The fuel diesel engine has a welded steel frame, full pressure lubrication, all parts provided with the pressurized cooling system is used with the cooling water that flows successfully through the engine, the radiators, lubricating oil cooler, and the circulated by the engine, driven with a central figure pump, the lubricating oil cool by the water, and the heat exchanger with the water with fans, but could be cool radiator thermostatically controlled with the radiators, shutters, and maintain diesel engine temperature automatically. Traction motors. The traction generator is alternating the current with the 3-phase, the direct connected with the diesel engine crankshaft. Solid state rectifier converts the AC current to DC for application of the traction motor. The exciter and auxiliary DC generators are geared with driven with the main generator shaft. The auxiliary generator supplies the battery charging, low voltage circuits for the lighting and the control auxiliary motors. The exciter supplies for the excitation of the system. Traction motor. Each of the DC motors is supported with the axle suspension bearings. The resilient support mounted with the truck's transom, shrunken onto the motor armature shaft with the pinion gear with the mesh with the drive gear with the mesh upon the wheel axle. The gear ratio between the pinion and the drive gear is expressed in two figures 81 to 22. The first number indicates the number of the teeth driven in with the gear, and the second number indicates the number of the teeth on the pinion. Forward the reverse movement of the locomotive is controlled with the piston reverser. When moved with the forward reverse position, the reverse handle with the engine man position changes the direction through the traction motor fields. Transition is changing the traction motor with the connections controlled automatically with the motor connections taking place in the reverse order of the locomotive is decelerating with power on. Automatic transmission. These units equipped with the automatic transmission place the selector handle in the number 1 position, permits the automatic transition to take place in the predetermined locomotive speed during the acceleration deceleration. Transition event is followed, starting the motor connected with the serials parallel. First event, the motor is connected in parallel. Auxiliary equipment. The engine air system. Air is drawn with the mechanically typed air filter, filtered by the oil pan of the type of the air filters. Dirt removed from the mechanical filter is exhausted through the motor-driven aspirator. Electrical rotating equipment ventilation. Air is forced through the mechanical type of the air filter, mechanically driven with the fan with the portion of the filter with the air used for the cooling of the generator, the used for the purge of the engine compartment. The remaining of the portion of the filtered air is blown, driven gear, driven the multiple type of the blower with the duct throughout the underframe with the cooling the traction motor through a separate ducts of the cooling main generator rectifiers, the engine aftercooler radiators. The engine aftercooler is separately water cooled by the radiator located with the top portion of the generator compartment. The system is from the main engine cooling system. Auxiliary drive, the diesel engine drive, the radiator fan through an eddy current clutch. Connections between the engine and air compressor eddy current clutch are thoroughly flexible couplings. Dynamic braking. If used, the dynamic brake is a means when the traction motors are used to produce the braking instead of the pulling of the effort. The motor is reconnected with the generators. The power produced by them dissipated with the heat by the fan blowing resistors. The brake is usually principally on the grade it may be used to very good advantage of the slowdown. The resistor is assembled and mounted between the radiator of the compartment and the operating cab of the radiator compartment. Operating controls. Control stand. The control stand of the engine man position are shown in Figure 3 with the call out of the engine shown with the various controls conveniently located with the engine man controlling operation handle. Throttle handle has an idle and a 0 position with the engine running in 8 running notches. The position is shown with the indicator above the handle. Advancing the throttle completely in each of the succeeding notches. Do not leave halfway between the notches. The throttle handle can be returned to the idle as rapidly as desired. Our selector handle has an off and a 0 position with 4 monitoring position left with the braking ring with the right is the position shown with the indicator at the top of the controller. Handle off the position disconnects the traction motor power and the braking circuits. The handle in the motor position in number 1 sets the motoring circuit. The transition will take place automatically before accelerating and decelerating. When in multiple units with the equipped with a non-supervisory automatic transmission with the selector handle in the lead position should remain in the number 1 transition position. When in the multiple unit with the units equipped with the supervisor automatic transmission, the selector handle in the lead unit should be placed in the selector position number 4. When the multiple unit is equipped with the manual transmission, selector handle should be moved from the position number 1 through the position number 2, 3, and 4, according to the operating instruction of locomotive equipped with a manual transmission. Handling the brake range provided with the dynamic braking. If the locomotive is not equipped with dynamic braking, a stop of the controller prevents the movement of the handle into the braking range. Alright, reverse handle. The 3 positions are forward, off, and reverse. The first selecting desired direction locomotive with the move of the handle in the same direction of the desire for the locomotive center on the position is off. The hump control handle, if used, has an off position. The hump control range when they move downward. Mechanical interlocking between handles. The throttle handle can be moved to the idle position only when the selector handle is in the 1, 2, 3, or 4, and the reverse handle is installed. The selector handle can be moved from the off position to the number 1 position regardless of the reverse handle position, and can be moved in position number 2, 3, and 4 only when the reverse handle is in forward or reverse. Alright, 3 on units equipped with the dynamic braking, the selector handle can be moved to the braking range only with the reverse handle with the forward or the reverse throttle is in idle, and the throttle handle is in idle. Or your reverse handle can be moved only when the throttle handle is in idle, and the reverse handle can be moved only when the throttle is in idle, and when the selector hand on the off and in the number 1 position can be installed, removed only for the off position. Hump control handle, if used, can be moved regardless of the position above the handles. Figure 3, controls for the engine man position. Multiple unit emergency stop run switch. When the red stop button is pushed, it will shut down the engine simultaneously. All other engine multiple unit locomotive is provided with the emergency use. The reset of the pushing in the back running button. Power reduction switch. If the first unit with the consistent slip excessively operated with the power reduction switch is not shown, the reverse reduce the power with the trailing units operating with the full power. Return the switch off. Normal full operation emergency standing switch. If used, the switch number 8 is in on position, provides an operation with all the standards in case all standard provides for operation of all standards in case of emergency such as plugging operation. Alright, figure 3, air brake controls. 1, 2 load meter, 3 speed meter, 4 lead axle standing switch, 5 wheel slip and dynamic brake light, 6 throttle handle, 7 reverse handle, 8 in the emergency standing switch, 9 selector handle, 10 name plate lights, 11 gauge light dimming control, 12 multiple unit emergency run switch, 13 engine control circuit breaker, 14 generator field switch, 15 control circuit breaker, 16 headlight control switches off, dim and bright, 17 light switches gauge the dime of the ground, pneumatically standing control valve if used for the electrical standing switch and standing control switch if used, 19 locomotive bell control valve, 20 ground relay reset or the generator field relay reset. Figure 3 shows the control stand composite. This is your control stand up here in the right. Lead axle sanding switch if you use the depressing the push button switch forward to the sand in front of the lead axle, releasing the switch to stop sanding. Sanding control valve. On some of the unit sanding is controlled by the pneumatic lead valve, the 18, while on the others unit sanding is controlled by the electrical switch. Operating control stand is in front of both of the trucks and refer to the sanding control section. Gauge light dimming control. Adjust the control to obtain the desired illumination of the gauges. Remote ground relay. Depress the button to electrically reset the ground relay. See the ground relay instructions. Generator field over reset. If used, depress the button 20 to electrically reset the generator overload relay. The overload relay instructions. Alright, compartment control panels. Figure 4 with the control panel located with the rear wall of the operating cab. Refer to Figure 4 with the containing with the necessary control of the engine and auxiliary distribution engine control switch. The engine control switch has two positions: idle run, which switches idle position with the power plant with the offline with the engine speed held in the idle load and cannot be applied to the power plant as the switch must be in idle to start the engine. The switch is moved with the run position in order to lower the power plant and operate with the idle speed. The engine start switch and stop button. The start switch is in three positions: reset, fuel pump start, or off, or engine start. Return rotary switch, spring return rotary switch. The reset button is used to reset the emergency fuel cutoff switch. It has been operated with the start the fuel pump. The engine starting is used to crank the engine. The stop button is depressed and held until the engine stops, regardless of the position of the other controls. Mechanically reset ground relay. The ground relay has an indication lever that points to the red dot when the relay is tripped. The reset button location adjacent to the indicator push to reset. See the ground relay instruction. Multiple unit headlight setup switch. The switch 23 has 5 positions to put place switches in the proper position according to the unit's location direction the multiple unit consists. Power matching switch. If you use the switch 21 on position, automatically reduces the power of these units and match lower with the power units of the multiple unit consists. The motor cutout switch. If used, switch 19 serves portion of the isolated individual unit motors. The 4 motor units, either the truck or 4 6 motor units. Alright, this is numbered. It's your controls for the circuit breakers 1 through 15, and then 16 and 17 back on the bottom side, and then your 22 and 23, 19 through 21 and 23. Alright, check the oil with the generator gearbox. Check the oil fan with the fan-driven box. Starting the diesel engine. Close the battery circuit. Close all the circuit breakers on the engine control and power distribution panels. Toggle the switch of the engine man control stand with the control panels will operate lights. The ground relay control switch must be closed, but the ground relay must not be tripped. If the tripped, see the ground relay for resetting instruction. The traction motor cutoff switch, if used, should be indicated with the all-in. If any of the other positions, see the traction motor cutoff switch instructions. 6. Turn the engine to control switch to idle. Move the throttle to idle. Move the reverse selector handle to off. Close the control engine control breakers. Reset the multiple unit stop run button. These controls are engine man control stand. Turn on the start switch to reset fuel pump start. Monetarily start the fuel pump motor. Allow the fuel pressure to build up. 11 to start the turn start when the engine starts with the crank engine. To hold it when the engine starts. Warning: do not exhaust supply with the starting engine. Repeated attempts to crank with the first 2 or 3 attempts are not successful. Recheck the complete starting preparation. After starting the engine, check the engine air filter, exhaustor, motor, generator compartment, ventilation fan, engine crankcase, exhaustor, and are operating properly. 13. Move the engine control switch to the run position. Before moving the train, install the brake valve handles and reverse lever. Check the main reserve air pressure. Check the control air pressure is a normal 70 psi. Move the brake valve, cutoff valve in position depending on the intended use of the locomotive, the front or passenger 3 position type. Place multiple unit tube valve if you lead position. Double cutout cock with the use and if used in the open position, make a brake application. Release the handbrake. The dead engine. The cock must be in the live position. Test standards 8 and 9. Make the air brake test. 9, 10. Have at least 120 degrees water for temperature if possible before notching up. Coupling units equipped with a 26L brake equipment on the lead unit. Position all the switch and breakers cutout cocks for the same as single unit operation. Place the multiple unit tube of the valve if used in lead position and double cutout cock if used in the open position. Alright, on trailing units, see that all the circuit breakers on the control compartment panel are closed. Make sure the control engine control the generator with the circuit breaker located with the engine control panel are off. The throttle handle position and idle. The selector handle in the position must be in the off position. Reverse handle must be in the off if removed. Place the multiple unit to valve this if you've in the trail 2-6 position. The double cutout cock is closed in the position. Place automatic brake valve handle in the off position. Independent brake valve handle in the release position. Remove the both handles. Position the brake valve cutoff valve in the out position. On all units, engage the couplers, connect the air hoses, multiple unit jumpers between the units, open the airline cock, see the L, use the match power matching feature, place the multiple unit headlight switch, setup switch in the proper position. Do not use this before turning on the headlights. Do this before turning on the headlights, sorry. Operating procedure, moving on the train. Closing a generator field switch on the engine man control stand, move the reverse handle for the forward or reverse position depending on the direction desired. Move the selector handle to position 1, selector handle for the position, humping control handle. See the hump control, depress the safety control pedal if used, release the brakes, open throttle, stopping the train, move the throttle handle with the idle, apply with the air brakes if leaving the engine man and position, move the selector and reverse handle to the off, reverse locomotive, bring the locomotive to the full stop, move the selector handle to the number 1 position, move the reverse handle to the opposite direction, 4, release the brakes, and 5, open per throttle. Shutting down the diesel. Open the generator field switch located on the engine man control stand. Move the engine control switch to the idle position. Press and hold and stop located near the start switch of the control compartment until the engine stops. Apply the handbrake and release the air brakes. Open all the switches and circuit breakers at the engine man control stand. Open the battery switch engine stop button on the engine control stand to be used for the emergency stop only. Note. Your multiple unit operation, when operating with a single unit, consists of these units in the multiple unit. Loss of the real adhesion, lower speed normally tends to protect traction equipment against the overload, and no minimum speed need to be observed. In the event of the track conditions, such as the usually high adhesion can be maintained, the load motor will move into the short time range approximately the following speeds. Or with the gear ratio, max speed at 74 and 18 at 66 miles an hour. The Century does not block in. Century 430 doesn't clock in. The Century 60-30 at 10.2, 81 and 22 gears and 74 miles an hour. Century 430, 19 miles an hour. Century 630, 11.6 miles an hour. 8 and 23. 8 and 23 gear ratio, 78 miles an hour. Century 40 at 2.5 and 12.3 at 630. 79 and 24, 83 miles an hour max. 21.6 Century 430 and 630 it was 13.0. When operating units with different minimum continuous speed, the engine man must not operate with the units below the highest minimum continuous speed of any of the units in the multiple. Power matching feature, if used. When operating multiple units with a different minimum continuous speed, lower horsepower with the power matching switch should be in the on position. The automatically controlled reduction power of these units is obtained thoroughly. The continuous traction effort per motor will match the lower powered units. Under these conditions, the minimum continuous speed, low powered unit until the consistent may be observed. Note that the power matching switch must be placed in the on position. All of the units consist of the lower powered units prior to the operation. Lead unit power reduction if used when they operating under the conditions with adhesion available to lead units, less available to the trailing units. Lead unit power with the reduce of the equivalent one throat notch without affecting the trailing units. The accomplish of the turning power reduction switch of the on position wheel slip equipment will be operating less frequently, promoting smoother and train handle, reducing sand consumption. After adhesion conditions approved, the power reduction switch should be returned to the off position for normal full power operation. All right, your throttle handle. If an inherent feature of the locomotive provides throttle control with the traction effort, the other offers two advantages. The first affords the engine man ability to control the throttle notch position and the amount of the traction effort to be developed. Second, it provides the positive protection against excessive load current with the traction motors and generator. The purpose of this feature offers the improved train handling as well as protection to the electrical equipment. Is important, therefore, the engine man thoroughly understand the proper use, since it does not require slightly different to throttle handling than other types of locomotives not so equipped. How it works: for each of the throttle position, definite maximum load current with the corresponding traction effort may be developed. Increase the throttles advance for the one position to the next, immediate, both smooth. Since, however, the total traction effort of the locomotive is divided into 8 steps, available the 8 throttle notches necessary to advance all the way to the 8th notch in order to develop a full traction effort. Furthermore, since maximum current is controlled, perfectly safe so far as electrical mechanical equipment is concerned to advance the throttle rapidly into the 8th notch. In fact, it is not only desirable but necessary to understand the starting conditions. How it's used. It will well understand the worst treatment can be given to the traction motors allowed with the standing installed condition for any of the appreciable length of the time the load current is applied to it. If there becomes an important that has given the due to the care, ensure that the brakes are released if the train slack is out. Start the locomotive to move as quickly as possible. Accelerate the speed when they bring a load meter pointer down into the green zone. Minimum time, therefore, making of the start. This is a good practice advantage. Advance the throttle properly. The notch will start the locomotive movement. If after starting the acceleration too fast until the certain the slack is out, the throttle may be backed off and required to maintain the desired locomotive speed. As soon as the slack is out, and the throttle may be advanced with the fastest desired to suit the operation conditions. Starting the passenger light and light trains. For normal starting of the passenger light trains, the non-appreciable difference with the throttle handling will be noted with the other types of equipment. Expect with the immediate response obtained with each with the throttle more advanced. Normal starting heavy trains. Normally, it is not necessary to bunch the slack if the train is not to be stretched. As soon as the brakes are fully released, the throttle should be advanced immediately to whatever notch is required to start the movement. The adjusting it up and down suitable desired operation conditions, bearing with the mind of the desirability of acceleration of the train, where the load meter registers for the green zone at the minimum time to the normal level of the ground, starting then no movement. If no movement is obtained, but the throttle is reached for the 5th and 6th notch, the shut off of the throttle and recheck to ensure that the brakes are fully released. All right. Where were we? We were starting heavy trains on severe grades. It is occasionally necessary to take such as much as the 7th and 8th notch to make a start. The engine must, over the course, due to the care of the handle of the train slack of the time of the power application, ensure that the brakes are released. Having ensured that him or herself with the slack of the air brake condition has should the hesitance advance with the throttle quickly to the even in the 8th notch to get the train moving. While the load of the current will be high, but the control limits the value with the corresponding approximately the main shortener time rating is shown with the load meter. The important thing is to get the locomotive moving and thrust to keeping the minimum length of the time during when the heavy load current is supplied with the motors before starting to turn. Alright, wheel slip, adhesion loss detection. In the event of the wheel slip while the locomotive is monitoring, the power automatically reduces in proportion to severity of the slip. The power is reapplied, but the slip is arrested. The action when the wheel slip, the function is in any region, the sand is automatically applied if the slip is arrested. In the event of the repetitive slips, the manual sand is being used. In the event step of 1, 2, and 3 fail, they automatically correct the slip with a predetermined time. Approximately 10 seconds, an audible visible alarm given with an all cab throttle should be reduced until the warning stops. When the using the locomotive air brakes, the throttle over the idle position, lose the adhesion, sliding with the locomotive wheel resist. Also is an immediate audible visible alarm in all cabs. And a continuous wheel slip, the warning indicate with the load axle checks that should be made and ensure the free rotation of the wheel located with the axle. Protection provided with all units coupled with multiple inside isolated units provided battery switch and main control positive and negative breakers that are closed in the isolated units. 7. In dynamic braking, wheels adhesion causes the dynamic braking effort to automatically reduce the unit effective with the also unit audible visible alarm occurs immediately after in all cabs persisting on the proper wheel speed recovered. In the event of the repetitive slip and indication of the dynamic braking, the braking effort should be normally reduced until the rail condition adhesion improves. See also lead unit power reduction. Alright, your air equipment, the 26L brake equipment. The 26L brake equipment consists primarily automatic brake valve, independent brake valve, and the control valve with the relay valve with the double cutout cock and the multiple unit 2 valve. Details of the equipment may be very different to meet the specific operation requirements for Figure 5. 1. The automatic brake valve and the self-leveling valve with the 6 position normally release minimum reduction surface and suppression and handle off an emergency. Release position left position of the brake valve handle and charge with the brake of the system and releasing the automatic brake application. B. The minimum reduction position provides that the reduction approximately 6 to 8 psi pressure with the equalizing reservoir with the turn of the reduce the brake pipe pressure similarity. Surface position consists of the selector handle of the movement that regulates the brake of the pipe pressure with the pressure lower than the minimum reduction in intensity of the surface brake application increase with the handle to move to the right. 8. The suppression position is used for the purpose of nullifying the safety control overspeed with the train control brake application with the allowable penalty time. The brake valve handle is placed in the suppression position just prior to the penalty application. The penalty brake application may be avoided. However, the brake of the valve is designed whenever the handle is placed in the suppression position. A full surface brake application will be obtained. Handle off the position and selector of the handle with the movement reduces the brake pipe pressure and the brake valve is at 0. And the various valve with the position with the bank of the inoperative normal operation feature for the brake valve handle can be removed in this position. The emergency position is extremely right position of the brake valve handle in which the time of the brake pipe is bending with the fastest possible rate to reduce the emergency brake application. 2. The independent brake valve is a self-lapping type of position with a release and application leakage. 2 position release and application leakage automatically controlled will ensure the brake will not release due to the leakage. When the brake valve handle is set with any position application zone, the valve will automatically lap when applied with the pressure with the reaches of the valve of the corresponding position of the handle. The depressing of the handle into the release position will cause the release to automatically brake application existing in the locomotive. The brake valve cutout valve has 2 to 3 positions: in, out, and cutout in front and passenger. The valve interprets airflow from the relay valve of the brake pipe in the event of the emergency brake application. When the out position of the operation of the auxiliary braking device connected to the brake valve for all the normal operation for the locomotive, the cutoff valve must be placed in either the front or passenger position depending on the intended use for the locomotive. 4. The regulating valve portion automatically maintains the equalizing reservoir pressure against the overcharge against the leakage adjustment. Equalizer reserve pressure in the release position is made with the adjusting knob at the rear of the regulating valve. The control valve of the automatic valve is capable of responding to the surface rate of the emergency rate of the changing of the brake pipe pressure, thus developing the brake pipe cylinder pressure with the brake pipe reductions, references, and control of the reserve pressure of the 26F that contains the graduated release cap of the 2 position graduated and graduated and direct. Alright, figure 5 shows the air brake operating controls. 1 was the automatic brake valve handle. 2 is the brake pipe cutout valve. 3 is the independent brake valve handle. 4 is the multiple unit valve if used, and 5 is the brake cylinder and brake pipe gauge. 6 is the main reserve equalizing reserve gauge, and 7 is a regulating valve behind the panel. Okay. There are the 26F contains the graduated release cap of the 2 position graduated and direct. These apply to the automatic release of the locomotive brakes, which we will graduate with the passenger light surface direct with the heavy freight surface. The relay valve with the self-lapping for the valve with the function that's supplied with the exhaust air with the brake of the cylinder during the brake operation. 7 the multiple unit 2, the valve that is used for the 3 position valve applied with the 26L equipped with the locomotive pertaining to the operation with the 624 and 624 and 26 equipped with the locomotive 3 position are marked with the lead or dead, the trailing 6 or 26 of the trailing 24 when the locomotive is operating the single lead or unit held by the dead end of the train, the valve with the proportion position lead dead, or the operating of the train unit between the 6 and 26 equipment, the valve with the beam position of the trailing 6 or 26 behind the 24 type of equipment, the valve is positioned in the trail 24. The double cutout cock with the 2 positions applied with the 26L equipped with the locomotive pertaining to operating the 24 and 26 equipped locomotive to position marked with the closed and open the closed position is served to isolate the independent brake valve in the trailing unit. 9. Safety control pedal. If used located with the floor with the front of the engine man seat, but the pedal must be depressed at all times except when the locomotive is stopped and 30 pounds or more. Brake cylinder pressure exists. The pedal with relief during the operation. The safety control whistle is sound for the 2 or 3 seconds during which time the pedal will be depressed and preventing the brake application. Otherwise, full surface application of the brakes will be made. Reduction selector, if associated with the device, provides the automatic split and reduction during the penalty application for the overspeed that is used. Demand safety control, or if used, the train control if used, and when the freight passenger cutout cock of the freight position. Dynamic brake interlocking is furnished with the dynamic braking equipment and is used if released. Locomotive, the dynamic brake is on. The independent brake application release of the locomotive with the brake valve at all times, respectively, of the dynamic brake operation. Note that railroads specifically conditioned to operate the interlocking pneumatic control switch if used in air with the operated with electrical switch. Penalty application of the air brake with such an emergency safety control, etc. will trip the switch, returning the diesel engine to idle. The switch is reset automatically as soon as the brake pipe is recharged with the main reserve of the air pressure drops below 40 psi. Note that the railroad specified conditions that operate with the switch. Changing ends of the 26L brake equipment on being cut out. One unit being cut out. To make the 20-pound brake pipe, the reduction, move the automatic brake valve handle in the service position, move the independent brake valve handle to the release position, to observe the brakes as are still applied, but move the brake valve to the cutout position, move the multiple unit 2 valve if you the trailing trail 6 and 2-6 with the trailing 6 and 2-6 equipment, the trailing 2-4 with the trailing the 2-4 equipment, a double cutout cock with it fused with the closed position. 5. Move automatic brake valve handle to the handle off position, remove the both handles, replace the reserve handle with the off position, remove the 2. This is necessary for the selector handle to be in the off position and throttle in the idle position. An engine with control switch for the open with control brake with the generator field switch leaving the engine control breaker closed. Note that on some units equipped with the multiple units for the equipped with the other manufacturer, the control breaker must be left closed until the control and engine control breakers are closed on the unit being cut in. Or on units being cut in. Insert the reverse lever handle in and leave it in the off position. Insert automatic independent valve handle multiple unit. Move the multiple unit 2 valve to the lead or dead position. Double cock if used to open position. Move the brake valve cut off valve into the inner front or the passenger position, freight or passenger position, depending on the service intended to move the independent brake valve handle to the full application position. Move the automatic brake valve handle to the release position. Close the control engine control breaker on the engine control panel. Open the engine control breaker on the engine end being cut out with the note that the open control breaker to see that the note above the and the close of the generator field switch on the engine control panel. 10. Place the foot on the safety control pedal and, if used, and release independent brake valve. Operating the 26L and the 6SL and 24RL equipment with the multiple unit. When operating locomotives, you usually have the 24RL brake equipment must head of those using the 6SL equipment with the brake pipe and the 24L RL equipped with the properly modified with the operating with the use of the brake system and the multiplying the 26L provisions are available for the 26 on the 26L equipped only unit so that they lead and trail with the other mentioned brake systems. If the unit is trailing behind the locomotive, the 6SL brake with the multiple unit valve with the trail 6 and the trailing unit. Using the 24RL and placing the multiple unit 2 valve in the trail 2-4 position. Note that the 26L and the 24RL and the 26SL equipped locomotives are operated with multiple units. The following hose connections must be made. Alright, in the 26L, the hose connection is made with the brake pipe, actuating pipe, the main reserve equalizing pressure, and the BC equalizing pressure. 24RL, the brake pipe, actuating pipe with the main reserve equalizing pressure, independent application release valve pressure. 6SL, the brake pipe, main reserve equalizing pressure, and BC equalizing pressure. Braking with power. Gradually apply the automatic brake for the light brake with the pipe with reduction, release the locomotive brake, and depressing the independent with the valve in the release position. Reduce the throttle to maintain load meter with the point of the green handle band with the motoring scale of the train speed. The decrease the move of the throttle and the idle before the train comes in the dead stop. On locomotive with the multiple unit with the manual transmission locomotive, move the selector handle into the position corresponding with the speed locomotive with recovery off the brake after the penalty application. Place the brake valve in the suppression position. Close the throttle to idle. Depress the safety control pedal if used. Allow the application pipe to build up the main reserve pressure. Release the pressure for about 12 to 14 seconds, and then release the brakes. Alright, fast air pumping. Generate the fuel switch located on the engine main control switch must be off. The reverse handle must be in the off position. Selector handle must be in the one position. Open the throttle is desired in the notch 5. And the compressor with the governor cuts out the short interval of pumping is indicated with the higher engine RPM being used and necessary for the air being consumed. Engine emergency brake valve. The valve is located with the operating cab of the handle is operated with the brake pipe open with the atmosphere to produce the emergency brake application. Auxiliary air equipment. Locomotive valve. The bell ringer operating valve is located near the brake valve with the control for the air with the main reserve for the operating with the pneumatic bell ringer. The locomotive horn. The control of the valve with the horn is located with the ceiling with the cab. The controlled main reserve for the air pressure for the hose. The pull with the rope of the operation conveniently located with the engine position. In some application of the hand operating valve is located on the top of the control stand. 3. The shut-off cock of the horn is located below the cab floor, accessible through the hinge door on the side cab. 1. The windshield wipers. The needle valve located on each of the windshield wipers, which wipers provide with the independent control speed. The shut-off of the global valve with the air supply with the wipers located with the cab floor, accessible through the hinge door on the side cab. Some of the wipers are equipped with a manual operating lever. The control air reducing valve with the air through the number 1 main reserve is reduced to 70 psi throughout the reducing valve with the control air pressure gauge of the pipe is to operate with the reverse series parallel contactors. Dynamic braking switching. If you use stand control, several types of standing control may be used, and all system standing control cutout cockpit for each of the truck is located under the frame. Push of the pole and the pneumatic control valve at the top of the valve with the on and off position. See this item 18, the figure 3. Either one of the valve, the 2 valve application may be used. 1 valve application direction, the stand flow control with the position reverse interlock. However, the conjunction with the 1 valve application, the 2 toggle switch located on the control stand provides the operation with all standards in case of emergency, such as the plugging operation. See the items 8 and figure 3. Electronic control switch type. There are 2 types of electronic control switch are used: a push button and a 3-button position switch. The push button switch. The direction of the stand flow control with the position with the reverse interlock or with the conjunction with the push button switch with the application of the toggle switch locating the control stand provided for the operation of all standards in case of the emergency such as the plugging operation. 3-position switch. The 3-position switch has a forward, neutral, and reverse position operation of the standards directly. Lead axle standing the push button switch located with the control stand provided standing with the lead axle only with the see item 4 and figure 3 with the item some of the applications indicated with lighting is also provided. Know that in some applications the lead, the axle, standing switch, and the starting of the standing control switch, as shown in figure 3, is reverse. Miscellaneous operating instructions, dynamic braking operation if used when all units equipped with the automatic control dynamic braking, the engine control with the control the application of the dynamic braking with the selector hand with all full brake position has reached for the brake is automatically regulated to develop maximum available braking efforts of any speed without manual attention. The selector handle must be advanced and slowly through the braking range. The braking current builds up the rapidly hesitated advance. Do not back up the unit of the current with a steady. Any effort to manually reduce the braking current would probably cause the hunting condition. Advancing the selector of the braking range, the engine speed will increase the forward throttle notch, thereby providing an additional cooling with the traction motor of the operation effect of the dynamic braking of the train, similar to those of the locomotive. Independent air brake of the braking effort is applied with the locomotive only. The same precaution for the bunching of the slack and the preventing slack of the run out required to apply the dynamic brake. Move the throttle to idle. Have the reverse handle in the forward or reverse depending on the direction motion. Move the selector handle off, handle to off, and then to big D in the selection range. Load meter pointed with the slow show slight meter for the bunch. Bunch train slack advancing selector handle continuously with the brake range of do not allow the load meter point to exceed the first mark. After selecting his punch and advanced selector handle slowly into the braking range until the desired braking effort is reached. And if the maximum effort is desired, move the handle into the full position. On position, moving the handle slowly. The amount of the braking effort should obtain the variance of the train speed. The obtaining the maximum braking performance. The selector handle must be removed to its position. On position. When the selector handle is in the on position, the braking effort will increase. The speed decrease until it reaches the maximum value. Will maintain the maximum value with a few miles per hour, after which it gradually falls onto the reach of 0 to 0 miles per hour. The speed range maximum braking effort for all the gears as follows. The 4 motor has a 74 miles per hour at 24, 78 at 26, and 83 at 27. The 6 motor has a 66 at 20, 74 at 22, 78 at 24, and 83 at 25. Note that some units extended range braking, which increases the low speed braking range. If it is permissible to start and stand still with the downgrade of the dynamic brake applied. When the braking heavy terrain with the severe grade with the maximum dynamic braking may not be sufficient to hold the desired train speed, and an application for the automatic air brakes may be used in addition with the dynamic brake to maintain the desired train speed. The dynamic braking interlocking will hold the locomotive release for any position of the automatic brake valve other than the emergency. The dynamic braking interlock with the pneumatic control switch under the 26L brake equipment. Release the dynamic brakes when not using the air brakes. Reduce the braking slowly. Pause when the load meter point indicated for the first white mark on the motoring scale to prevent the slack of the running out. To the handle cut can be now moved to off in the motor or into motoring. Reduce the dynamic braking during the automatic brake application. Maintain the desired surface grades for the application. Automatic air brake may be used for the supplement of the dynamic brake. However, the automatic brake application is possible locomotive when using the dynamic brake. The flat wheels may be result and on the locomotive if the independent air brakes are applied using the dynamic brake. See the dynamic brake interlocking with the pneumatic controls under the 26L brake equipment. When releasing the dynamic brake after the automatic air brake application has been made, to press the independent brake valve to the release position and then move the selector handle to the off. The independent brake valve handle may not be released after this operation. Independent brake on the locomotive may be applied if desired. Caution: the dynamic brake is released before the depressing of the independent brake valve. A rapid locomotive brake cylinder pressure build will occur and possibly resulting in a locked axle or flat wheels. Releasing the dynamic brake with an emergency air brake application specified with the railroad. Emergency air brake application will initiate with the brake valve handle or from the train, but the dynamic brake will automatically be cut out. An emergency and the air brake will be on the locomotive as well. If the train under the condition the engine man shut, return the selector handle on the off position properly as consistent with the operating instructions. Cutting out dynamic brake with the engine control switch. The dynamic brake on only with the lead unit selector handling off the void surge of the equipment on the train. But for some reason, the dynamic brake may not be cut except for the lead of the unit selector handle in the off position. Turning the engine control switch to the idle causes the dynamic braking on the unit that is until to be inoperative. Alright, dynamic braking with the lead unit idling shutdown. Operate the dynamic brake easily manner. However, the load meter and operative for other conditions. Lead unit with see the operating with the lead unit idling and shutdown. Operating multiple unit with locomotives having the manually controlled dynamic braking. Operating usually mannered with the brake warning light operates, but this indicates the warning brake limiting has been exceeded with the trailing unit. The engine man must reduce the braking to a point where the light will not operate. The dynamic braking unit selector switch, if used when operating with the All American Locomotive Company, the units multiple, place the unit selector switch on the units for the number 1 position. Do not install the field loop, the dynamic braking jumper between the units. When operating with the All Locomotive Company, units multiple units with other manufacturer, place the unit selector on the all trailing units for the number 1 position. Place the unit selector switch on the lead unit corresponding with the number of the units and consist. Install the feed loop with the dynamic braking jumpers between all the units. Alright, dual control if used. When the 2 operating control stations applied with the same cap of the engine control with the fuel pump breaker with the control breaker generator field switch are wired in the series, therefore whether these breaker switches are referred to the operating instructions, they must be operated with both control stations in order to obtain the desired function. To change operating stations, make a full surface brake application, place the brake valve in cutout valve with the out position, move the outer brake valve in the handle off position, remove the both and move the independent brake valve handle to the release position, and replace the handle and station with the operator with the set off the cutout of the valve in the in position of the front freight or passenger if used. Alright, your hump control if used. The device's means for the engine can be obtained with the precise control of the tractor lever. It uses the permits close the current with a low train and speed. As a humping surface, the general surface that you're using will be very helpful in starting the trains under the difficult conditions. The small controller mounted with the control stand, the means of the hump with the control obtained with the handle with the control may be moved in the opposite. Offer maximum tractive effort, may be decreasing the range to full or on minimum tractive effort position. Moving the handle from the opposition of the tractive effort will be reduced to below the tractive effort setting of the throttle. The farther the handle is moved downward, the greater the tractive effort reduction. Alright, for humping surface, having a humping handle of hump controller in the opposition, start the train in the normal manner, advance the throttle only with the notch required for the move the train proper humping speed lead in this position. The train becomes lighter, gradually moves the hump controller downward to hold the proper speed. Alright, 5. When the hump controller reaches the full on position, reduce the throttle 1/9 and move the hump controller toward the off and hold the proper speed. Observe the load meter with the short time overloads. For heavy-duty surface, the following the 2 methods used in the hump controller and the heavy-duty surface. Because of the variation in the type of the surface, it's difficult to predict the best method to use. Therefore, the suggested engine man select one of the best methods suited for the particular use. The first method, the throttle handle with the notch 1, move the hump controller handle to the full on, advance the throttle into the full fairly rapidly to the 8th notch, and reduce it unless experiencing indicates the lower notch is sufficient. Move the hump controller hard handle toward the off position until the train begins with the move of the train speed. We can refer to the increase the control by the handle movement. When the train is started with the hump control handle, should be moved in the off position unless control of the traffic effort is necessary to give traction without wheel slip. Second method. A starting train, advanced throttle is normally manual with a wheel slip occurring with the notch level throttle with the notch, reducing tractive effort, moving the hump control down from the off position after the wheel slip to move the hump controller toward the off position to obtain the tractive effort that can be applied without the slip. The traction picks up the speed, move the hump controller to the opposition, operates normally. Passing over railroad crossings. To serve mechanical shaft that receive with the traction motor when passing over the railroad crossing at the high speed may cause the brushes to bounce with the flash over the traction motor at high speed with reducing the throttle to the 5th notch below with all the units that pass over the crossing. This is not necessary for the low speeds. It is also desirable to reduce the dynamic braking at high speeds over crossing for the same reason. Engine water system, cooling water temperature control. The engine water temperature is controlled by the single fan radiator shutter located in the engine hood of the locomotive. The speed of the fan, the position of the shutter, automatically controlled by the temperature of the water leaving out the digital engine. After cool temperature control. After cooler water temperature is controlled by the fan and air pair of the radiator shutters located in the generator compartment. The fan speed is governed by the engine speed. The position of the shutters is automatically controlled by the temperature of the water leaving the aftercooler. Alright, your manual shutter position. In the event of the shutters fail to operate with automatically, they can be operated manually with closing the cutout cock with the shutter magnetic valve. The air automatically bled from the system, allowing the free position of the shutter vanes. They may be blocked, having a desired position. Under no condition should the fan be operated with the shutters closed. Alright, your fill and drain. The system is equipped with a four-way, two-way position valve with the filling of the draining to fill the drain system to turn the valve the opposite direction. Also shown in Figure 6 of the tall telltale pipes of the after-cooled water pump stealing. Water dripping from these pipes indicates the leaks of the device. This one is your fill drain valve. 2 is the water pump telltale pipe, and 3 is the after-cooled telltale pipe. Also, Figure 6 shows the fill drain valve and the telltale pipes. Handbrake operation. To apply the brake operating with the hand lever the upward with the pumping action until the brake is set, but not necessary to set the manipulate the trip lever in any way while the brake is being applied. To release the brake, push the hand lever and as far as the back of the will go, leave it there and do not push it against the handle of the retard. Releasing the action, pull the trip lever upward and outward out until holding it until the chain weight is rubber snob up against the bottom of the brake housing. If the chain weight is in rubber snob or does not return to the bottom of the housing, reset the brake or repeat the releasing procedure. Cab heater. The defrost of the cab heaters are located to the right and left side of the cab. The defrosted damper, the rheostat switches are located on the heater. Classification lights are permanently installed with each of the four corners, front and rear of the locomotive body because of the angle of the lens visible both of the front and side of the locomotive. After the front individual lens of each of the three colors are provided with the color control switch with the aspect mounted to the access door of the front wall of the cab. At the rear of the two colored lenses of the red and green are agreed with each of the terms being swung between the light and the clear glass of the lens to give the desired colored location. The colored lens is accessible to the small doors and hood that are moved in positioning upward and knob button on the little assembly. The rotating anchor does not agree with the color indication desired. The switch of the compartment of the control panel will turn both classification lights. Number lights. Angled and illuminated number boxes provided with the corners of the locomotive control switch for the front lights, but is located within the panel with the windshield. With the rear lights is located in the compartment of the control panel. Headlights are used with equipped with a headlight in the front of the rear, front and the rear. There are three position off and dim and the bright switch located with the control stand with the control of each light with multiple unit setup. Switch must be properly positioned according to the locomotive direction of the position, and it can consist. Abnormal operation. Emergency engine shutdown. Alright, the stop running switch is located with the engine control stand. When the red stop button is pushed, it will shut down the engine of the unit and simultaneously all other engines of the multiple unit locomotive. It provides emergency use only. The normal shutdown should be made with the engine stop button located in the control compartment near the engine control switch. To restart the engine of the single and multiple unit locomotives after shutdown emergency stop run switch, reset the switch pushing the black run button. Start the engine of any of the unit in normal manner with the first turning the engine control switch to the idle position. Operating with a dead battery on the lead unit. Turn the engine control switch to idle, open the battery breaker, open the electrical cab circuit cab heater circuit breaker. If used, open all the circuit breakers on the control compartment panel, except the headlight, cab lights, and engine room light breakers. Open the engine control breaker and close the generator field switch and control the breaker engine man control stand. On any one of the trailing units that close the engine control and control breakers on the engine control stand, make sure that all the circuit breakers on the control compartment are closed. Caution, do not use more than one headlight. Control breaker may trip. Towing dead locomotive. In the freezing weather, the draining of the engine water system, the brake equipment on one or more dead units, which are multiple with live leading unit, should be set with the same that the live for trailing units recommended with the brake equipment on each of the unit with dead multiple unit locomotive, which is not multiple with the live unit, should be set on the single or dead as follows. The drain all the air with the main reserve of the air brake system. Move the brake valve to cutout valve to the out position. Multiple unit 2 valve in the dead position. Double cutout valve in the open position. Place the automatic brake valve in the off position. Independent brake valve handle in the release position. Place the throttle in idle. Selector in reverse. Handles in the off position, remove the reverse handle, place the dead engine cock in the dead position, release the cap of the control valve, shut down the direct release position, 7, control the brake pipe hose only. Operating through water. Do not exceed 2 to 3 miles an hour if the water is above the railhead. Do not pass through water over 4 inches above the railhead. Gauge the instrument load meter. The load meter is the color hand, the device that is used to gauge for the guide the correct locomotive of the operation. Motoring band is pointer position. Color band indicates the relative amount of the traction after developed by the locomotive. Also load current with the traction motive. The green zone represents the normal operation of the zone. Operating time in the run restricted. This yellow indicates the short time of the capacity of the traction motive at the point with the color band change from the green to yellow indicates the end of the continuous rating. All right, your short time load operation overload range of the graduated show for the time and the minutes of the various loads for the carry with the greater the load, the shorter the time allowed. The maximum allowed with the yellow zone is indicated by the other markers for the yellow zone, indicated by the maximum time allowed with the pointer. And these points, if the pointer remains between any of the two numbers, the maximum time allowed must be estimated with the operator. If the load changes, the operator must judge when the has used the full allowable time for the yellow zone. For example, the 1/2 of the time where you used load before it was changed. The allowable time of the new load would be 1/2 the indicated time. When the short time that has been used in a full allowable time, the load must be reduced with the pointer as at below or the yellow triangle, which appears near the upper end of the green band. The load must be held at below the yellow line with at least 20 minutes before another overload of the yellow zone must be repeated. If practice is not allowed, followed, the traction motor may be seriously damaged. Speed indicator. The speed indicator logo is the engine position of the speed scale with the indicated locomotive speed in the miles per hour. Engine double air brake pressure brake gauge located with the engine man position. See figure 5 on the gauge indicates the brake pipe and the brake cylinder pressure. The second gauge indicates the main reserve and the equalizing air pressure. All right, your control air pressure gauges. The control air pressure gauge system reducing the valve is located behind the contactor apartment. The gauge should indicate 70 psi at all times. The loss of control air pressure will prevent operation with electro-pneumatic contact with further locomotive movement. Engine start system gauge, the lubricating oil dipstick. The bayonet gauge figure 7 located on the left side of the engine should show the oil between high and low marks while the engine is idling. If the oil in this checking with the engine mark is shut down, the level may be above the high mark. Water temperature gauge, a dial indicator located in the manifold along with the temperature control switches to provide with the normal operating temperature of the cooling water of 150 degrees to 180 degrees Fahrenheit. Water level gauge located on the cooling water system expansion tank of the gauge must show the water at all times. And figure 7 shows the engine dipstick with the lube oil dipstick, and figures 8 shows the water level gauge and the temperature indicator control switch. The water level gauge, the temperature indicator, and the control switch. A lower water level switch is also provided in see figure 9. And to test the switch, open the test valve, drain the water, and switch the float chamber to lower the water alarm. The indicator should light. Lubricating oil pressure should indicate the minimum 35 psi at the idling speed of 50 psi at the top engine speed. Fuel oil pressure gauge should indicate 35 to 45 psi at all engine speeds. All right, your booster air pressure gauge should indicate 15 to 18 psi of full throttle engine fully loaded, lower pressure of the low throttle in notches. Note that some applications lubricating oil pressure, fuel oil pressure, and booster air pressure gauge are mounted with the panel with the operating cab of the engine compartment. And other applications quickly disconnect the test connections provided by the engine compartment. Other system gauges, air compressor maintain oil level at the full mark on the bayonet gauge. Figure 9 shows the low water level switch, lay and test the valve, the low level switch and test valve, or at a run dial gauge within the engine shutdown. Figure 10. Fan drive and gearbox maintain oil level between the fully added marks and the dipstick. Figure 11. Engine governor maintain oil level of the PGR governor between the lines of the sight glass and with the engine running. Figure 12 with the MG8 governor that has 2 sight glasses. The oil level should be below the line of the lower glass and not above the top of the glass. The generator gearbox maintain oil level between the full and added marks of the dipstick and figure 13 with the engine running. Figure 10 shows the air compressor of the 3CDCL filler plug, oil level, and oil drain plug. Figure 11 shows the fan-driven drive gearbox of the GDY for the breather dipstick, oil filler cap, and drain box. Figure 12 shows the engine governor and PGR with the oil filler, low oil pressure reset button, oil level sight glass. Figure 13 shows the generator gearbox, the GTA9 filler pipe, and the dipstick. Automatic alarms and safeguards. In single multiple unit operation, the alarm system is provided with the following: low lube oil pressure, hot engine, low water, the ground relay trip, the generator field overload, no battery charge, wheel slip, and dynamic brake warning. An alarm bell will for items 1, 2, 3, and 4 will be sounded, and all cabs of warning light will all operate with an effective unit. Note that the alarm may be in silence for item 4 if the engine control switch is in the return idle. The warning light and the buzzer to the items 5 and 6 will indicate the lead cab as well as the unit is affected. Alright, low lubricating oil pressure. If the oil pressure drops to 30 psi below the engine shutdown, the alarm will bell sound with the green light green low lubricating oil pressure lamp light on the engine control panel. After the engine shuts down, the turning of the engine control switch to the idle, check the diesel engine lubricating oil pressure, check the broken and leaking oil lines. Reset the shutdown plunger with the PGR engine governor alarm bell will be silenced in figure 12. Restart the engine in normal manner. Alright, if you got a hot engine, the engine cooling water temperature reaches 195 degrees Fahrenheit. The hot engine red indicating light located on the control compartment will light. The alarm will be sound. The engine cooling water temperature reaches 203 degrees Fahrenheit. Engine speed will return to idle. Low water. If the engine control cooling water level in the expansion tank drops the predetermined level, the engine will shut down. The hot engine red indicating light will light. The alarm bell will sound. The test of low water switch open the test cock of the drain water from the switch float chamber. See figure 9. Ground relay. Ground power circuit operates with the ground relays to return the engine to the idle. Remove the excitation sign with the alarm bell with the light and white ground indicating light on the control compartment. The ground relay reset mechanical. The indicator pointer of the ground relay effective of the unit will point to the red dot. The pointer can be seen through the window plate with the cover of the relay is located on the engine control panel. Turn the engine control switch to idle. Push the ground relay mechanical reset button. Turn the engine control switch to run if the relay stays in continuing normal operation. Ground relay resets remote electrical. The white indicating light will light, and in the effect of the unit, the alarm will ring. Return the throttle to idle. Push the ground relay electrical set. Reset the yellow button. Open the throttle, and if the relay stays, control normal operation. Alright, a ground relay cutout. If the ground relay continues the trip, the motor cutout switch, if used, may be used to isolate the faulty truck of the motors individually. Motors on 4 motor units. For example, the reset ground relay outlined with the turn motor with the cutout switch. The cutout the truck set with the motor for the start locomotive. Follow the same procedure for motors on the remaining truck. Under the extreme emergency condition, reset the ground relay outlined. Open the ground relay. Open the ground relay cutout switch of the control compartment and move the locomotive no further than necessary to observe the smoke overheating the electrical equipment. 3 position cutout switches used near the locomotive position 1 in normal operation. Position 2, the ground relay generator field contactor cutout position locomotive cannot be operated. Position 3, the emergency position the locomotive will operate without the ground relay protection. Seal must be broken to use this position. Alright, repeated ground relay tripping may be indicated with the traction motor failure that might result in the loading locked axle. The check should be made with ensure that all wheels are turning freely. Note that all ground indications should be reported even if the ground appears to have corrected. Generator field overload relay. Overload of the main generator field operates the relay with the return the idle to sound alarm bell with the indicating light of the affected unit. To reset the overload relay, return the throttle to idle, push the overload relay electrical reset button to figure 3, the item 20 of the control stand, open the throttle. Dynamic braking warning. If used when the dynamic braking limit is exceeded any of the unit, the braking warning light, the buzzer will operate. The throttle handle must be moved to the point where the light will not operate. Wheel slipping warning. When the wheel slipping relay operates, the wheel slipping light with the buzzer will operate. The power will automatically reduce and reapply with the further information will slip. Circuit breaker. The circuit breakers are used with all control circuits will trip and open whether they are overloaded. The circuit the braking suitable identified located with the engine man position on the control and compartment panel. If the circuit breaker should trip, the handle will be approximately mid-made between on and off. To reset the move handle to the off position, then to the on. In some cases, it's necessary to wait for a few minutes before the breaker can reset. Alright, your crankcase exhaustor. Yellow crankcase exhaustor light is located on the engine control panel. Should be on the off, continuously indicated with the exhaustor is running. If the light is on, see if the crankcase or exhaust breaker is closed and the breaker is closed. Report the condition. If the exhaustor is not running, the engine should be shut down and the trouble corrected. Journal box heat indicator. If the heater indicator is installed with the housing of the roller bearing journal box is emitting the pungent odor within the journal box temperature reaches 250 degrees Fahrenheit. Diesel engine overspeed. The diesel engine overspeed mechanicalism. The front end of the engine, right side of the operating shutdown. When the engine refer to the figure 14 trip lever releases the spring-loaded shaft. Figure 14 engine overspeed trip set on the trip knob and the reset handle, which is the turn rotates the fuel lump of the control shaft to shut off the fuel supply. To trip manually pushing on the shutdown knob to reset the push in the shutdown knob and the pull down on the reset handle. The latching position portion of the reset handle allows the shutdown knob to release the reset handle while the position itself is shown in figure 14. Alright, if you have no battery charge and no charge indicating light with auxiliary generators located with the engine control panel, if the engine is running, the engine control switch as in the run position and the battery charging equipment fails, then the lamp will light and the alarm bell will sound. Locomotive overspeed. If you use the three types of locomotive overspeed devices, to be using an overspeed signal with the axle generator will automatically indicate the surface bearing application speed limiting exceeding the engine's man's warning light with a limit light of 3 miles an hour below the maximum locomotive speed. An overspeed speed signal with the micro switch with a speed recorder with the initiate the surface brake application with the speed limit servicing setting exceeding overspeed signal with the speed governor of the train control switch and initiating and service the brake application. The locomotive exceeds the maximum speed of the blocking conditions. All three systems operate through the pneumatic control switch, causing the diesel engine to return to the idle to recover the brake. To recover brake and see recover the brake after brake penalty application. And this concludes your Operating Century Manual Road Locomotives Acdc Transmission TP Technical Publication 454, all American Locomotive Company.